All right, so that was an extremely abbreviated first two pieces of the whole thing. But with all of that in mind, just maiden voyage, observations. Seth gave a thumbs up. Well, of course, these people are super likable. And that doesn't mean that everybody that's going to come to your group initially is. Seriously. So, yeah. What did you observe?
Transparency.
You guys had some transparency going on there?
Yeah. Nice, yeah.
Good. Yeah, I wasn't actually planning on the Zoom crew being a part of the discussion, so well done you guys at flexing and figuring that out. So, yeah. What else? Let's just take the connect part of the story first.
What do you think we were gonna do?
I thought you guys were just gonna hang up.
My mind engaged in a new way when we began to be a group here. You know, like you said, when I'm just listening to you, I have a certain way of, you know, trying to stay engaged with you. I didn't mean
Thank you. Chris just said that she has a certain way of trying to stay engaged with me. So
it's just like a classroom experience.
yes.
And then when you get in a small group, it's like, oh, you mean I have to, you know, participate. I have to like listen even more.
Yeah, and you're a
so
really good listener. So
My mind changed. It just, I don't know. I just felt like it changed. It engaged in a different way, in a good way. You know.
Yeah.
Higher level critical thinking skills.
Higher level critical thinking skills were engaged here. Chris just said that she engaged. Can you guys hear her on Zoom? Okay, so I won't say that. And I'm recording this debrief, but I think that's going to be lame. So because I don't think it's going to be heard very well. So actually, let's just try it this way. We'll just unplug this, and maybe it will pick up more people. All right. So what else? What else did you observe?
Well, if you have one person who's semi-technology understanding how easy it is to do your hybrid, meaning you might have someone who can't make it in person, but it's really not. If you have a speaker with that, I have a pro speaker, you can easily hybrid your group and have someone join in online. It's very simple. And it didn't take away from our group at all. You just need to have a speaker so that you just talk into it, makes it easier. Other than that, with hearing ability, you can make the groups pretty hybridable without having to make such extreme only Zoom groups or only in-person groups. You could have both.
Interesting.
If you have someone understands it.
Yeah. Although it did make you guys all have to hover around the screen pretty close. Is that what you mean by needing a speaker?
Yeah, if you have a Bluetooth speaker that you put it in the middle of the room and just turn the camera.
Yeah. Interesting. Cool.
I like how people, like, because we read the same text, but when everybody starts to share, like each person sees something different and has something to bring in. So you have that. It's cool to hear.
Yeah.
Like, how it's and how you get, like, I got ministered to by what I read, but I got ministered to by what they saw. You know, so it's like what they feel.
Yeah.
And it brings insight. It's like I've read the passage a few times in my life, but it brings insight from other people of like, well, that kind of tweaks things and really adds some depth to what I was getting personally out of it.
Very much so. Yes.
It grows it.
Yeah, it just gives you a much broader perspective in the whole thing because different people are seeing different things and the Lord's speaking in different ways. Yeah.
So it speaks not only to me, but it helps me get to know people in my group better.
Yeah.
Because you're kind of seeing this is where they're at right now. It's maybe a little snapshot. But if God is speaking to them from that particular verse or whatever, that's where they're at that point. And so it works that way too.
Yeah, very much so. Okay. What else?
We had a super, I'd say, positive instance of seeing the same passage in Scripture two different ways. And I say positive because I can see that being a potential challenge for somebody else to be able to do about it. But we read the same thing two different ways.
Yeah.
And that actually worked out well. As a leader, I can easily be intimidated by somebody getting overly legalistic in the middle of that conversation. That didn't happen. And in this group, there's some of the greatest people in the world in this room.
Right. Yeah.
But I can see that being an issue. I would, honestly, if that came up, I would definitely have to deal with that.
Yeah. Fair enough.
What did you mean by reading the scripture two different ways?
There was a passage in Philippians that we read. There was one verse.
You mean using two different translations?
Interpreted two different ways.
Yeah. Just
Okay.
interpreting.
Okay.
Just something that brought up in our other minds.
Okay.
One was in Greek and one was in Aramaic.
We read the scripture in English, then in Spanish, then in Chinese.
Okay. So we read it in the Message, the Good News, and ESV, and then the NIV.
Are you sure your group is the best?
You guys are
Of course,
just
it's King
smart.
James. That's the whole deal. Yeah.
I like the smaller group setting as well, because if you have more of an ability to learn, because you can, number one, ask questions in the midst of going through a passage. You can get somebody else's perspective on how they've had interaction with that particular passage in their heart, in their life, in their soul, or and then you can also be challenged as well in a different way if you get together corporately.
Yeah.
I mean, there is a challenge corporately when you're talking about scripture and bring a challenge with that. But there's another layer of challenge, I think, to this smaller group, and that we can come alongside one another and be doers of the word together as a group.
Yeah.
As we will challenge each other to serve in a particular maybe way that is challenging or scary for some of us. And, I think it's just such a more intimate way of growing, developing, becoming a disciple, being challenged, being led, being able to ask.
Yeah. Now, what did you guys think about the size of the discussion group?
For this short period of time.
I think that the connectivity is what's so powerful in that is when it's small, you really are hearing life story and connection from each person, and that connects me to each individual. The easy thing with this is I like these people and these are healthy people.
Right.
The challenge, I think, is when we start to mix up these groups, people that would be a purpose, not to just gravitate to people that we like,
Right.
that are already connected. But how do we do this with people that are not connected, that are not so easy to relate, that
Right.
bring a lot of brokenness? Not that we're not broken, but maybe we're refined in our brokenness. And so I think that that's going to be an interesting challenge.
Yeah.
I love these people.
Yeah.
And I choose these people any day above
Right.
many others. And so I don't like that about myself, but I think that's going to be the challenge for me. How do we, again, widen this to the whole?
Right. Yeah.
Right? Are you depending on picking the groups for themselves, right? Or, and obviously asking the Holy Spirit, bring the right things together.
Right. Well, and admittedly, for me at this point in time, I'm not sure exactly how we want to gather, who we want to gather. So I'm still trying to figure this out, and we've got 2 weeks, to figure that out. But I think that still, what I don't want to do is just to take all the people that have already been in small groups and just shuffle the deck with them. But want to go after the people that are not that are not gathered and bring them into a house church, and really church them, in that sense, so that they really are experiencing church because they're experiencing you. So I think that's going to mean us getting outside as leaders. It's going to mean us getting outside of the bubble of who we know. Again, when we did the first look a couple of weeks ago on a Tuesday, what was interesting to me that was overwhelmingly positive about that whole experience was you all really like each other, and that's very obvious. The energy in the room, just in terms of relationship and enjoyment of these people, was very obvious, so that when we got done and said, we're done, lots of people stayed and just wanted to hang out. When people, after a lot of you left, still a lot of others stayed out in the parking lot and talked. And it's like, we really like these people. We want to be with these people. But I want those people that are not part of this to experience that. That's what Jesus wants, I think, for us to do, is to go after the strays and those outliers and those people that are out on the outside of community, but would be a part of the church. I mean, the church in terms of the church function, the church identity, not the church corporation or anything, that they would benefit. Yeah.
So maybe I think that is tweaking a little bit with my idea of house church, where I've been seeing house church as like these people that I would like to spend this amount of time with, kind of thing, because that's selfishly me.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm going to take this valuable time, I want it to be valuable people. That's honesty. And so maybe shifting that to that is what the Sunday morning gathering could become more of. These are my peoples. You know, these are together.
This is a family reunion.
The people, and we're hearing, you know, bigger picture things, but we're also sharing stories of, you know, maybe anyway. If I can shift to the small group to say, step outside of my comfort zone and start with people that are on the fringe, giving them something that I've already experienced and love experiencing and naturally do, but me break out of that bubble, start with people that need that so badly that don't have that, and develop that with them, and truly let the Holy Spirit give me a love for those people, connecting me with those people that they need. Is that more what we're talking about?
Yes. I think the reality is, all of you in this room, I don't have any doubt that you're a disciple already. So and that you're in the process of becoming a better disciple, a more mature disciple. No doubt. That's why you're in the room. That's why we invited you. But I think the reality is that there's a whole bunch of people that are a part of our church that have believed, but haven't really migrated much beyond believing. And they've gathered data. Maybe they know a lot of Bible verses. Maybe they even know a lot of truth. But the truth hasn't changed them because they've not really gotten into a relationship, gotten down and dirty, gotten to be a part of a community where they actually have to grow. And where actually that's the point of growing. So again, that's formidable because I think that people tend to think, well, we just come on Sunday morning and we went to church. We went to church. You know, it's like, there's so many things wrong with that. We went to church. You don't go to church. You are that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a really hard balance with like what Becky's saying, because especially like, I think the disciples really struggled with it too. And growing up in the church, I saw all the time, like you have your leadership people and you get tired because you're constantly pouring out. So all you want to do is be with the people you're comfortable with and actually let your hair down. But then there's all these people who need help, and then you get this like it's almost like juggling of pride, like, you know, like, oh, I have to reach out to these people, you know, they need me. But then there's also that genuine need for connection as a leader, and like you can't just constantly pour out. And so it's like it's a really hard. It's a hard juggle. Like we have to figure out where that is, because other people are going to be like, oh, they're so cliquish. They always hang out together.
Battery's low.
That's a huge thing too. People always see people in church as being cliquish, even if we're not trying to. Like I can accidentally talk to Christian for an hour. Like it's happened before. But like I have to pull myself away and make sure I say hi to somebody else, and it's not on purpose. But like, and I think that's going to be really hard. Like deliberately make ourselves uncomfortable.
Can I ask a question with that? Like, is there a place where there is, because if you do have, like, let's say you have like 12 people in a group, and you have maybe your people that are a little bit like maybe more disciples, and you have so much in a group, is there a place where maybe there is a couple people that are kind of a little more mature in the Lord, so that it is not like just a bunch of people that are like, I don't want to say difficult, but just a little bit more to navigate, and where there's a couple people that are solid, so that it's more to pour in. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah, and I think that the reality is that in every one of these groups, it's part of knowing who you've got.
Yeah.
You know, so if you've got some mature believers in your group, then you get them together offline, you know, off of the house church meeting, and you basically say, hey, I need for you guys to help me carry the load in this. Okay. And I'm not looking for the leaders to carry all of the load. You're not becoming pastors and the whole thing, but I understand, Shannon, what you said is that, you know, there is a kind of a drain factor in that whole thing of you're giving out, you know, in that, but we're doing this together really as well. So I think
guilt ourselves into it too sometimes, like,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I guess because it's my job, I don't really guilt myself into it, but yeah, I totally get what you're saying. And I think that in this, one of the things that we've talked about, and I'm not sure what the right balance in the whole thing is, the Zoom people we just lost because the battery just died. Bye. Hello, they're off. But the reality is that I think that we're once a month, every 6 weeks, I'm just thinking that we get all of the house church leaders together, and we just minister to each other, and we just kind of hear and do a little bit of that together, so that you guys aren't dying on the vine in this whole thing. It's not, but I do realize that if you do a house church meeting and you have a Sunday morning meeting, in my mind, I'm hoping that this spills over into other just times where we hang out, like you guys hang out with dry bilbuses a lot, that I understand. And you drink wine and you share life and you go to Mexico and things like that. That we're all doing that. That our life isn't, our Christ life isn't built on church meetings, whether they be small or big. There's a bit more spill over and sharing. I don't know. I'm not coming up with the right terminology on this, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm thinking. I look at the house church as kind of like my family, and the dynamics every Sunday after church. We all get together and have a meal. And it was kind of an organic thing. It just kind of happened, and it happened. And I noticed, as far as the leadership problem with the burden being on the leader all the time, I think the focus of these groups isn't, and that's why I'm not too crazy about the term of leadership, isn't on the leader.
Right.
And so I like the term more like a facilitator. And I've noticed in my family, the more I brought in other people to take care of the little family problems that we had, like, what do I do with my kid when he does this kind of thing? Instead of me answering it, I'd say, go talk to Hillary, see what she did when one of the girls did that kind of thing. And that's what they said in the Alpha thing, that you bring the whole group in to do the leadership problem and take care of it. And it releases the burden from the leader or the facilitator or whatever we're going to call ourselves, to the point where you don't get that burnout feeling. And there's times when I sit back and I listen to them all talk, and I don't really agree with Hillary, but what Maggie said made more sense to me. But it's not my problem to solve, it's Katie's problem to solve. And whatever advice she takes from her two sisters, that's it, as long as it's not blasphemy, kind of thing. So I think if we focus our groups on each other instead of us, then it will alleviate a lot of that problem.
I think
Like
that I learned a few decades ago that I have family all around the world. All over this planet, I have family members that I haven't met yet. And we're all in process. Mm-hmm. And we're in the family because God reached out to us and He loves us. And He's the one who holds us all together. And so in our groups, it's like we have people that may be not even part of the family yet, or part of our group. but they're a potential family member, and God loves them just as much as the oldest member of the family. There's no, or the youngest member of the family. There's no difference there.
Mm-hmm.
And so if we just look at them as, okay, they're in process, like we have someone shared of how they were in process, and at times seeming running away from God while God was at the same time drawing them closer. And so we just let Jesus love them with a, through me, it'd be a Mark flavored Jesus, so to speak. A Chuck flavored Jesus.
I like that.
I mean, so we all have our own little part and our own little unique thing that we bring into it that's going to be different than everybody else. And it's not all about, oh, I have to save this person, I have to fix this person, I have to, it's just, and we all have different capacities. Some people have huge capacity to listen, and when you're dealing with black hole people, as I used to call them, I guess still do, it can be draining like crazy. And so you do what you can do as in your capacity, and then just say, God, this is your business here. This is not me. I'm not saving them. I can't do it. But I can do my little part.
Well, so let me be clear as well. I am not looking for anybody that leads a house church or facilitates a house church to be a pastor. I'm not looking for any of that. I'm looking for that person to serve kind of as a parent in a family, like Tim is talking about, that once you have a bunch of adult children in your family, you just provide a very different kind of leadership. It's not when your kids are little, you have to provide a very hands-on, turn off that sound, kind of a thing. But when you're dealing with adult children, if you parent them that way, they won't want anything to do with you. It's the reality of that. So we have to, alter our parenting to the level of that. So anyway, I think that in this, I would think it would be pretty scary to do this if you were like, oh, so I'm going to be the pastor of a house church. Now, that's not what we're trying to do. Again, that's not even what the New Testament did. In the early church as it was developing, that they had translocal leadership that visited, and they had some local leaders, and they're just figuring it out. So really would like for you to care for people well, and lead a good house church meeting and help people to care for people in that. Does that make sense? In a Mark style, Jesus in Mark, what did you say? How did you phrase it?
Mark flavored Jesus.
A Mark flavored Jesus. Yeah, I like that. I like that, Mark.
Mark, they was flavored.
Yeah, a Mark flavored Jesus. Yeah, and that's good. You were going to say Beck, and then we'll. Okay, Reggie, and then Becky, and then we'll.
I was going to say two things. I think we've been pushing around with the idea of somewhat, not like consistently, but somewhat having the facilitators all be together and just talk.
Mm-hmm.
I think that'd be really helpful. But then,
I just want to say that we want to build something where you can be the full you, and that's okay, and that's something that if the leaders or facilitators don't, then we will stay up here in terms of the level of connection and the level of knowing each other. And I'm committed to these things being places where people are truly known and accepted, and they're safe. So
what I was going to say before, Reggie, I think that there's different types of groups, and so Shannon was talking about the need to have a place where we personally are going to be filled, connected, put our guard down completely. I think is really important to have. So if it's once every 6 weeks or something like that, that you have a group gathering with your people, whatever that looks like, and facilitate that. Make sure that you're doing that for yourself, which would then empower you to, at other times, care for other people, because that's the purpose of that small house church group. Is I'm doing it to build, disciple, grow, start another one, set this group off, let them go off on their own, encourage the leaders within that group to do the same thing. You know, that's that multiplying, discipling kind of concept. But again, I think we're so used to thinking about, this is something I'm going to do, it's going to be forever and ever, and these are my people, and group. But that's what I think we're trying to step out of and say, how do we widen this to include those who do not already do this naturally? That's where it's discomfort inside, and it's okay. It's okay to say, this time is for that, for them, to disciple. This time over here is for what I need to care for myself. And then this is what Sunday morning is about. Something very different. So all those aspects.
So what would that, how would that be of value to you to have a regular, time where the house church leaders just get together? Would that be valuable to you?
I think so.
Yeah, definitely.
How often would be?
Twice a week.
This Christian thing is a full-time contact sport,
Go ahead. I mean, I could say right now, every 6 weeks or twice a week or whatever. I think a lot of that is going to become more obvious once we get in to leading house churches and the process. I mean, you were talking before, like, how do we decide who comes to our house church? And then, Becky's looking at inviting people that aren't involved. But I'm thinking, I don't know people that aren't involved. I know the people I know. Some of them may be participating a little bit more. Some not so much. I mean, I have been going to a home group since I started teaching.
For a long time, yeah.
Well, it hasn't been that long.
Having had to oversee several group leaders, multitudes, 20, 30, overseeing adolescents that are, you have a guy doing a group here, a guy doing a group here, a couple doing a group there. We're talking, 30, 40, 50 different people, leaders. Having overseen that, what I have found over the years of doing that was that they always wanted quarterly come-togethers so that all of the group leaders can then talk about challenges, struggles, facilitations, things like that they do. We call them workshops. And we would bring everybody together and then we would discuss what's happening because this person's struggling, that person might have the answer. And if we're coming together quarterly, regularly, it was set quarterly, and we would just come together and do it. And we would always have a, little banquet, a little food, and we would sit down and probably have a, 15-minute speaker on a topic. And then we would have, a workshop where we would actually do wordsmithing and study, where we would get up there and write down, okay, what are some challenges, what are some things that are great? We would just write them down and write them down, and then we would just discuss each thing, and we would just hit that quarterly. And then it covers group leaders because then the fear, it eliminates the fear of when somebody says, well, when I become a group leader, what's the support services that's going to help me with that? And it's like we got all these other group leaders, we do quarterly workshops, we have this right here, we have the facilitation of like, hey, this is the topics you can be doing yourself, which you've already done. We have these resources over here, you can talk through here, because if somebody's in Seth's group and they want to do their own thing, they want to know that they have that support service. But if they see Seth talking about it in his group, like, yeah, we just met in the workshop with leaders, and all of a sudden somebody else wants to be leader because they want to be in there with leaders or facilitators or whatever title comes about it. But if it's structured that way, we have it set, now everybody knows. I'm going to be hanging out with you guys on during this workshop on Saturday, and I'm looking forward to it coming in here. Because I already plan on recruiting everybody for our house church out of this group. So you guys know, it's a $10 signing bonus, But if you set up that group structure, like I love the quarterly workshop schedule where you have everybody comes together and we just deal with stuff, talk about it. And especially if we start getting a person that goes from that group, oh, I don't like those people. Now they're in that group, oh wait, I don't like those people. Now they're in this group, oh, I don't like those people. Okay, well, what do we do with a person like that that's a surfer? You know what I mean? And but if we have it set up, then it's good.
Yeah. So I guess my question on that to you guys is quarterly often enough to feel supported?
I think it feels like, just with you saying quarterly, that one kind of felt good. Because it's far enough apart that it's not bogging down your schedule with one more thing. I mean, is there anyone in this room that has a ton of free time to throw at whatever comes to it? No, nobody did besides Mark. Nobody does. So it's far enough apart that it doesn't bog down your weekly or monthly schedule with something, but it's close enough together that it would mitigate how many interactions you have to have as the overseer.
Sure.
Because I've got an issue, I've got to bring this up, but it's not so important that I need to reach out to you right now. I can wait 3 weeks for the next quarterly meeting that we have coming up. This is probably a good thing to bring up to the group and see what everybody's dealing with on it. Or I've got an emergency I need to talk about right now.
Which is always, I'm always available. Now.
Yeah.
I think it's important to recognize that if you're leading a group, involved with the leadership of a group, and the only support you have is quarterly meeting, you're in deep trouble.
Exactly. That's what I'm thinking too, that relationally, again, you guys are healthy. You know, if you need to get together with a couple and hang out and talk and blah, you're going to do that because that's what healthy leaders do. So it's not that we're not connecting with our important people in our world that we're connected with at other times for lunch, whatever. I think that's how
Yeah.
So it's not only that time. That time would be specifically for the needs of the leader groups. Facilitating the relational things are happening all the time.
Well, and this as an organism is going to change throughout the year based on holidays and stuff like that. So I think quarterly is really wise also to address calendar stuff.
Yeah.
Like when are we gonna most like Thanksgiving, Christmas season?
Yeah, and Easter is super frequent.
Oh yeah, Easter gets
Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. Anybody have any last comments or anything before we hang up the cleats for today?
If anybody's thinking about doing like a hybrid group, trying to incorporate Zoom, I'm gonna get with Kyle, who's like the tech wizard, and we're gonna figure out how to make it easier and figuring out just a laptop with a quick plug-in. So if you want to integrate your small group with a tech, I'm gonna be working on how to get that fully kinked out. So if you want to, just reach out to me, and me and Kyle are gonna figure it out and test run it this week at Marriott Group.
That would be great. Yeah.
We'll do some test runs to get it work up and running.
Because I think that it might be actually a helpful thing for everybody to have at least some literacy with that. Because if you had a group that you were in person all the time, but then you had people that were, hey, we're going to be on vacation, but if they knew that they could actually just join the group while they were on vacation remotely and just still be a part of that, some people might actually take you up on that. I think for me, when I'm on vacation, I want to completely disengage with everything. But not everybody feels that way. Or maybe somebody's out on a business trip or something.
Vacation and sometimes it's just traveling.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're not feeling well. Or maybe you might have been exposed to somebody with COVID and so you don't want to interact.
Yeah.
But so you can still stay connected.
Yeah. So Reggie, I think, and we're trying to figure out, to have a cadre of leaders who can lead Zoom groups that are just Zoom groups, and maybe the hybrid thing was a new one for us today. And then we're also trying to figure out, do we also try to start, a mask group, or two, a mask house church, or, some people that just don't want to meet, except they just feel squeamish, but would be in the same room with some other people if everybody wore masks. Again, she's trying to love her brothers and sisters well. I don't know.
Well, I think that we've all most of us have gotten really comfortable with the Zoom format, with hybrid types of meetings. So it's not a foreign thing for many people. For
Right.
some, it might still feel a little foreign.
It
But I think
depends on the type of work you're doing.
Yeah. So I think this last year has shifted a lot of those things for us. And then I was just going to say, if we need to create some kind of pool to look at who are interested, like I think that you could tap into. I have to give you lists of names of people that really need to connect. They don't know how to connect. So, and I could, you know, pull together some familiar things. This would be a great group. You know, so if you want those things, those resources are, I think, available. You just need to figure out how to communicate them to people.
And she knows a lot of the trouble people she can send your way.
Yeah, who do you think the people are that Becky knows about?
So, when you're done talking to, you know, the church that meets at the Springs, right, about this concept, because that's what you're in the midst of.
Yeah.
So, you know, how are you going to present that to people who are watching online, people who are coming on Sundays and stuff like that? Are you just going to give a list of people who, you know, this is a house where the church is going to be meeting on Thursdays, you know, the DeLong house. You know, there's going to be a church meeting, you know, the church is going to be meeting at your house. Maybe we shouldn't call each other leaders, I don't think. Maybe we should just be a house where the church is going to be meeting.
Yeah.
You know.
I like the host term that Alpha used, that we're hosting.
Host actually sounds really good.
Yeah.
A host and helper.
Right, like,
I
you
would
know,
call it Capitan.
in the New Testament, it's just where, you know, like, where the church meets in that city, her house or his house, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, how are we going to present that to the body of the Springs? And are we going to just have people go, oh, you know, I'll call Chuck up because they're going to host a church meeting on Thursdays?
So let me at least take a stab at that. Although one of the things that I was hoping that you would do is after our meeting today is that you guys would be thinking and praying about, and that next week we can actually do some round robin on that, and talk about some launch ideas together. And so I think at this point in time, this is my thinking, and this is firmly in jello. You know, in this, there's no concreteness to this at all. Is that I think that I would really like to see where we would end up with a significant amount of you all going after and inviting people that are not presently in a group, that you would invite them to come and do a house church with you. That would be my first choice. And then my second choice would be then from there to have 2 or 3 other ones just open up that are in a particular area, and at the same time, you know, advertise, put all the blips on the map that you guys are meeting as well. But I think that it would be better if you just went after some people and invited them to come and be a part of a church that meets in your home, or a church, or ask them to host a church that is in their home, and that you would facilitate that, or whatever. You know, there's just a lot of ways of doing that. But I think there's something unique about Jesus's method in that he invited everybody into the process. He didn't just, you know, there are all kinds of people that followed him, but he invited these people, you know, to do the discipleship thing. And I think that there's something really powerful about that, the interpersonal invite on that. So, yeah, and then, you know, as people, you know, come to us and, you know, in the future and say, hey, I'd like to start a house church with X, Y, and Z people, you know, would that be okay? Well, yeah, let's just train you and get you to go and do that. And so that we're not just limited to one form or another. But again, those are just my preliminary thoughts at this point in time. And I kind of feel like that we got to figure this out together on it. Because at this point, how do we launch this? And it's not just a big splurge of like the small group ministries that have launched in the Temecula Valley, where it's like, wow, you know, and it just tanks. I feel like that if we do this and we just spread our relational tentacles and spread our relational tentacles and spread our relational tentacles and do it kind of slow and steady wins the race rather than big splash and attrition thing, feels to me a bit more appropriate for where we're trying to go with this, instead of I don't know, it just trying to do something.
When you are inviting, and then they are inviting, and then those are inviting,
Right.
and then those are inviting.
Personal.
Yeah. Similar kind of thing is if you want, you know, if people would say, well, we need to announce for different leaders come to me all the time and say, can we announce for, you know, we need children's ministry workers? And it's like, I don't think that's the right way of doing that. I think that you look at and isolate and figure out who it is that you want to serve, and then you go after them. You pray and then you go after them. Then that way that you get the right people, but instead of people that are coming in and out and in and out and in and out. Now that obviously works and doesn't work at the same time. So there's pluses and minuses to it. So
Reggie.
I was going to say, Bob also has a working the Texan church list. If you want, I can come next week and get everyone who's not on a group's name. We can have a list, so we can just see who's not in a group.
that'd be great.
All right.
Yeah.
So I'll just do a Texan church list and find out who's there. Because we might have some people who are very small circles who are not going to go to this church. There's some people on that Texan who are like, cool, whatever. But yet they respond every time.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some people that used to be a part of a group that, because of COVID, are not part now.
So yeah, I'm just going to go through the
And
list.
they would
and
love
see
to get
everyone.
back in, especially a Zoom meeting type thing,
Yeah.
where they could feel comfortable, and I'm not going to
Yeah.
kill my whole family if I do this.
I mean, Pichet or,
Yeah, we already
Fish
asked who
Maker.
wants to do it online versus who wants to do it in person. We did
Yeah.
that last week. So we can do that again this week. I can do like individual messaging again.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
And
Yeah.
we're not limiting that to the people that we know already belong to the Springs, right?
Correct.
A church meeting in our house is open to whoever we choose.
Exactly.
Yeah, we have two, like a family and a single mom that don't go to our church.
Yeah, and I even just outside the box thing too, in Daniel in Michigan, his house church group started, they actually did it within their neighborhood, like vicinities. Whoever they were familiar from that vicinity, they invited to their house church. So who the two families that they got were saying nothing about them, they were very dissimilar, and they've actually really grown to care for these people, and it has become family. So again, it's the idea of organically what happens when you bring people in and you love them,
Yeah.
and you start to be vulnerable and share, you are known, and then you become connected.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
All right, it's noon, you guys. I kept you 45 minutes beyond what I said I was going to. Thank you for your patience and thank you for being here. I'm really, if you all planted, house churches, I would be ecstatic. And I know that you all like each other, but I would really like it if you all didn't just congregate to each other's groups in the whole thing. It would not be the point. So, yeah, with all of that said, Mark, would you close us out in prayer, please?
Father, I thank you that you have invited us, your children, to be leaders in helping other of your children to grow more, and to help come alongside people and just be who you are in us to them, and to just love on one another, Lord, to be family. Help us, Lord, to be the church again. And Lord, I ask for your grace in this whole process, and for your wisdom in this whole process. And Lord, for you to do all this, Lord, we're your feet on the ground, but you're the one who has to grow this and do this work, Lord. So I thank you for that also, Lord.
Thank you, Lord.
Amen.
Amen.